Hello and welcome to video 3 of the Tableau tutorial series. In this video, I just want to show you guys how to make a dashboard. In the last video I showed you how to create a map with colors like the one you see here. The only difference is this map is being colored based on categories which I've created. The next video of this series shows you how you can do that. I've also created a table in a different sheet, and I'd like to create a dashboard which has both of these sheets in them. Before I get started with creating a dashboard, I always like to go into a program like PowerPoint or something and just create a view as to how I'd like my dashboard to look. So this is kind of how I'd like my dashboard to look. So I have a title at the top for the dashboard. Each sheet I think should have a title. I like to create a separate text box for those titles, and I like them on top of each other. And on the right hand side, I'd like to have some space for filters. So I'll just show you how to do that. So whenever I create a dashboard for the first time, so you just click New Dashboard. Always set the size to automatic or sometimes minimum with range. Automatic means it fills up the whole space. I then look at what I've got here and I just place all the elements that I have just using floating. So I'll just hit floating down here and just drag what I want. So I wanted a text box up here for title. Make that nice and big. Like that, and do that for the rest of the elements. So you end up with something that looks like this. I guess the next thing I would do is I'll also probably drag in the sheets that I require underneath as well. And now we're still staying within the floating theme. I'll then start bringing in objects, either horizontal or vertical containers, to basically hold all this information. Still floating, so you can see how there's a title here and then there's a sheet. I don't need to double up on titles, so I'll just go right click on the sheet and get rid of hide title. Do the same thing here. I might prefer text boxes like this. There's a lot more you can do. I'll just show you in the next little section. They're a lot more versatile than the headers that sheets come with. So let's put this into a vertical object. So just click on here, just grab vertical, maybe just place it here for now. Then just click on the two things that I want. So I click on here, and I just holding shift, I'll just drag it into, so not holding shift, just drag it into this container here, and then do the same thing with this sheet below it. Now I need to hit shift. There we go. So now I've got a container. I can just click, if I click on a container, I've obviously selected the text box here. I can double click on it and I can select the entire container, and you can see it's basically a container which has a title and then a sheet. Not finished with this yet, so I'll just right click on here and hit format text object. I might put some shading here, so I might shade this particular object. I might shade it this color. I might change the text to white. There we go. Might double click on this to select the container. I might put a border around it, so I might go border, same color, and you end up like this. And you can just continue until you have your whole sheet. So I won't bore you with that. I'll just click here. Basically just gone a little bit further. So once I have done all this, the final step is obviously to then put all of these floating containers into fixed containers. So just select tiled here. We want a vertical for our title. I've already done that, so I'll just grab a horizontal to place underneath it. Put some blanks as placeholders. It makes it a lot easier. So now I know that everything goes in here. So I've got a horizontal here. So we need filters to go on one side and these two to go on the other. So I'll just grab this, holding shift, just drag that into there, double click on this, and then again holding shift, put that into there, double click on this and place this underneath, like so. Just double click, no, done that wrong, sorry. Just double click on here. I'll just drag this back out. I'm holding shift. I can turn that back into a thing, into a floating container. I might just click out of here. Grab a vertical container and chuck it in here. Put 2 blanks in there, like so. Holding shift, place that into there, and then place this into section below, like so. So obviously once you're finished, you can get rid of all the additional blank boxes you made. And now you've got your container. Also like to make sure all these containers are the same height, so I like to fix the text box heights. I think 35 is a good number. Do that for all of these. So you just click on here, right click, edit height 35. Make sure when you do this you're not selecting the entire container. You don't want the whole lot to be 35, you just want this section to be 35. Like so. We want this width to be probably be maybe 200, so double click on here. We want the width of the entire container to be 200, so just go edit width, so 200 there. You can see that this is taking up not much room, so we'll just drag that down like that. There we go. So we've got a dashboard. I guess the next thing is to add filters to our dashboard, so we can just click on here. We can go filters. So all the filters you have in your sheets can obviously come into here. So let's just grab region into here, drag that underneath, turn that into a multiple value drop down, and let's just drag one more filter in for good measure. Let's drag postcode, and then drag that to the side here as a multiple drop down. Now if I filter, you can see that it's filtering based on region. You may have noticed that the table at the bottom is not being filtered. So for another sheet to be filtered, that the same variable that you've used as filter must be contained within the second sheet as well. So you can see here that I've got region in this sheet as well. I don't have postcode, so I can either add postcode to this or just use suburb instead. So maybe we can just use suburb. You just click here, go filters, and then suburb. This doesn't have suburb in it now. Look, I'll just go back to here, and then we'll just add suburb to details. Come back to our dashboard. Here we are. So we'll just go right click, filters, suburb, turn this into a multiple value drop down. And it's still not doing that, but if you click on a filter, you can click on this little arrow drop down here and then go apply to worksheets. And you can go only to this worksheet is what it says here. It's probably cut off your screen, but what I want to do is I want to set selected worksheets, and you can just hit all on dashboard, or in this case just this, and do the same thing here with suburb. Awesome. So now when I select region, only the appropriate values are shown in this table here. You can take this one step further using what's known as a dashboard action. So what I'd like to do is when I click on a suburb like this, see how it highlights. I actually want this table to only show these values. So the way to do that is you've got to realize that when you're clicking on here, and we're actually basically selecting a suburb. So, or in this case, a postcode. So what you're doing is you're actually filtering on a postcode. So what we'll do is we just go dashboard, and we'll go Actions. And what we'll do is we'll hit Add an Action. It's obviously a filtering action. We want to filter this table based on what we do to this. So I'll hit Filter. We'll give this an appropriate name, so we'll call this Postcode Filter. Postcode Filter. Now we want it to happen, so this top section here is talking about what activates the filter. So this filter gets activated. Now we're on Dashboard 2 here. When you're on Dashboard 2 and you hit a sheet called Melbourne House Price Map, so when you're actually working with this sheet here, so we'll just select that. We want this to occur when we click on it, not when we hover on it, and not when we click. We don't want it to have to right click on it either, so we'll just select it. And we want it to actually target the sheet below, so we want it to target this sheet here. And we want basically whatever filter is applied by clicking on it, so in this case it's suburb, we want that to filter here. So you can go selected fields, but in this case all fields is appropriate as well. We also want to know what happens when we don't select anything. Do we want to show everything, or do we want to basically leave the previous filter, which can be quite confusing. I never select that value there. But sometimes you can maybe go exclude all values if this is too crowded when you have all the values. So if you had a pie chart down here, that's probably a very good option to choose. So we'll just choose show all values. We'll click OK. We'll click OK again. And now what you can do is you can click on a suburb and you can see down the bottom, just here, you get the information on that suburb. So this had one sale. If we pick a suburb which maybe had more, there you go, there's one there with two, you get both sales. You get all the information on there. Dashboard actions are really useful. There's a lot more you can do. I'll just quickly show you what would happen with the other options. So we could go edit. If we had selected menu, hover is obviously quite self-explanatory. But if you click on a menu, a little hyperlink comes up. You can click on that, and that will filter your data. Another way of doing it. There are other types of actions as well, which I definitely encourage you to explore. There's highlight, which is actually what was naturally happening with the map. You may have noticed you clicked on a suburb and it highlighted that suburb. And there's URL, which means you can click on something and it can take you to a different link. Very useful when you're on Tableau server and you want to maybe have something that links you to a different dashboard. It's also quite useful if you're connected to, say, a work computer and you want to have another field which maybe has an email and you want to maybe create a send to. So when they click on the hyperlink, it maybe opens up an email with an appropriate address. But yeah, look, I really encourage you guys to play around with this and have a bit of fun. Please like my video, subscribe, and if you guys have any questions, please feel free to raise them in the comment box. Thanks guys, bye.